Homegrown, your daddy's on the phone, your mama's in the kitchen, and I watch the family crumble in you know, you bet your life and soul. I wander around the garden and I watch the family crumble in.
Hey guys, Matt. I want to talk about the people around us that are just completely gone. I used to kind of make light of it. I used to talk about it a lot, but it never really bothered me. It's actually starting to bother me a little bit. Went to Labor Day yesterday. It was an early thing at a family member's. Well, today's Labor Day. Cookout, whatever, hot dogs, hamburgers, and there wasn't many people there. But of course, they don't talk with me about any of this stuff, any of the stuff that we talk about. Again, old news, right? But they started to talk about it because I had given them a few CDs I made, and I gave them the CDs over a year ago. One was on 9/11. Never mention it to me. I mean, I spent days and days putting together this mini movie, and never mentioned it. So I just figured, look, it's too horrific. They simply don't want to go there or can't go there mentally. We know what the old theories are to explain people, but I'm not sure the old theories hold anymore. I mean, these people are just gone. So it came up. I mean, we actually started talking about 9/11, and one of the people there was my mother. She can be nasty, but she was particularly nasty last night. But the point is, no matter what I said, and I can explain things pretty well. I know every detail regarding 9/11 on what pokes holes in the official story. Put it like that. And they're nonsensical. I mean, you just can't get through to anybody. It's incredible. And once I said, look, I guess they were, we were talking about the collapse of the towers, and it was just, well, who's a structural engineer here? Are you a structural engineer? Could you tell me? I don't know exactly. And then, it was like, well, why do you need to be a structural engineer to figure if something hits very high up and there's 80 floors unaffected? The 80 floors provide no resistance. I mean, I just told them about free fall speed. If somebody went and dropped a bowling ball, the top 110th story fell at the same rate as the bowling ball. So I said to them, 80 floors, no resistance, same as air? Hundreds of millions of tons of concrete and welded steel? Folks, they couldn't get it, or they wouldn't get it. It's not normal. There's some sort of brainwashing going on. I'll go back to what Aurora said, the flying rainbow lasagna. I haven't watched her for a while. I think she's a good person. She said, she doesn't usually talk about this conspiracy stuff, but she said 9/11, there was a blinding spell and a binding spell. There's almost no other way to explain it. Because I can explain things pretty well, and I'm saying, guys, Tower 1 was hit up top. 80 floors without a paperclip out of place. Hundreds of millions of tons, or hundreds of millions of pounds of steel and concrete. No resistance to the top floors? Well, are you a structural engineer? He thinks he's a structural engineer. I can't say if I didn't go to structural engineering college. I mean, this is literally what I got. And I said, well, you just have to live on this earth. And we were on a deck. I said, I picked up a little ottoman. It was a plastic, PVC ottoman. I said, if I drop this ottoman, it was new Trex, the fake boards. I said, I know for sure it's not going to go crashing right through the deck. It's just a light PVC ottoman. I said, we live on this earth. Why do you need to be a structural engineer? Do I need a structural engineer to say if this ottoman's going to go crashing right through this deck? It's just they wouldn't leave it alone. And then I said, okay, look, and we're still in the 9/11. They said, well, I know you don't get a chance to talk about this to many people. So we're going to listen. We're going to listen. And I know you try to give me those movies, and we'll finally listen. So forget. I saw their brain had clamped down on the towers collapsing. So let's just go to something completely different. And they also told me my approach or my presentation was very condescending, arrogant. And let me know if it is, guys, because it was kind of like this. I guess I can come across not in the greatest way, but whenever they would point that out to me, I said, "Okay, I'm sorry for I need to. I was so desperate to give them the information. I said I need to work on my presentation. I'll do the best I can. I know I need to work on it. Just listen to the facts of what I'm saying to you. So let's go to something completely different. So let's go to the Pentagon. Okay, yeah, the Pentagon. You don't think a plane hit the Pentagon?" I said, "No, there's no plane that hit the Pentagon. Let me just, I said, please just give me 2 minutes." I told him 2 minutes. And I said, I kind of built it up like I was telling a story. And I said, I know every detail. Just on the fly. I said, Flight 77, American Airlines, the terrorist pilot that they say was flying it was named Hani Hanjour. Said instead of crashing right down into the Pentagon, most people don't know this. I told him. I tried to create a little story. I said he flew past the Pentagon. He pulled a 270-degree blind turn. Now, remember, guys, I was talking to these people. I said, remember, guys, he'd never flown a jumbo jet before. Maybe a simulator on a personal computer. He flew past the Pentagon, 270-degree blind turn, while descending 3,000 feet to come in completely level with the ground, maybe a quarter mile out from the Pentagon. He flew level, just 5 feet or so, a tiny little space below the plane. And he hugged the ground at a speed that exceeded 500 miles per hour. And I think even per Boeing's own design limitations, you can't get a 757 above 500 miles per hour below, say, 3,000 feet, because the air is thick and heavy. It's not thin. It doesn't go through the jet engines. And I said maybe they were Pratt and Whitney jet engines or General Electric, just to keep introducing different elements of the story that I try to convince them that maybe I am an expert on this and maybe I do know what I'm talking about. So I said a 270-degree blind turn while descending 3,000 feet, someone that's never flown a jumbo jet before. There's this group called Pilots for 9/11 Truth, and they say none of us can do it. And then he hugged the ground, and then he struck the Pentagon perfectly. Didn't belly out, didn't go into the grass, just 5 feet. Was just 5 feet off the ground, and he hit the Pentagon with just about 7 or 8 or 9 feet to spare without hitting the roof. So it's a Top Gun-like stunt that even professional pilots, nobody could do that. It's impossible. It's impossible. This is, and then the attacks started. It's impossible. Yeah, there's this group, Pilots for 9/11 Truth. And then somebody there said, "Well, who is this group? Have you vetted them? Do you believe this? Have you vetted the pilots?" One guy maybe he just is a crop duster and he put himself on a list and he doesn't fly. I said, "No, I haven't vetted all the pilots." And this is where the condescending attitude, and they didn't like my attitude, but I said, "No, I didn't vet the pilots. I didn't vet." And he's, "Why don't you contact one of these pilots?" I said, "They're privacy issues. I can't contact a pilot. They're not listing their name and their phone number and their email on a website to please contact me about the 9/11 truth of what Flight 77 supposedly did." I said, you just said I should contact one of them?" I said, "I don't need to vet these pilots for 9/11 truth, because even if this part of the story breaks down, I have 1,000 other parts of the story that make no sense. Why? So let's if you want to move off this piece, let's go to something else." And I said, "Are you aware there was a paper passport found at the bottom of the?" Yeah, I'm aware. One person was aware there was a passport found of a terrorist at the bottom of the Trade Center. Survived the crash and the fireball and the flame. God forbid, folks, I did not go. Planes, no plane. No. Obviously, you understand. I didn't go there. I have to keep it. You understand? You can't go there, especially with these people, obviously. So I said, I didn't, it was like, who the heck, I'm thinking to myself, who am I talking to? I said, so there were more terrorist passports found than there were black boxes. So from, that quote from that movie, Loose Change, I'm skeptical of Loose Change. I think it's an Alex Jones production. But the one thing I took away from it, which I loved, was on 9/11, paper survived, titanium did not. I said, how do you figure there are more passports than titanium black boxes? And it was just, there was no answer. It was just deflecting. Well, Matt, Pam here says you spend all your time researching this stuff. That's not good for you. So then they turn it on me and my mental health. And I said, guys, you're doing the rope-a-dope, because now we're talking about me, and it's getting late. It's 9:30. We have to leave soon. So the more we can occupy, they didn't like this either. I said, you're just trying to occupy the time here. You want to deflect. because there's very scary things that are coming out of my mouth. And when they said, oh, absolutely no scary things, we'll listen to anything you have to say. We don't believe it. I always figure those tactics, maybe those tactics are done in the subconscious or the unconscious parts of the brain. I've always thought this. So turn it on, Matt, or start talking about something else, and the subconscious doesn't want to hear the scary truth. So we need to talk about other things or find excuses to kind of kill the time, because we know Matt has to leave about 10 o'clock. And or whatever. Obviously that they're just trying to run out the clock. That was all these sidebar things they're bringing up. And I even said to them once, I'm like, you're doing rope-a-dope. You're trying to run out the clock. You won't let me present. And their conscious brain, the ego mind, the frontal lobes, if you would have put that to a lie detector, they would have never thought that's what they were doing. I said, we're not trying to occupy time. I'm completely ready to hear anything you have to say about this. I don't buy it, is what they said. And I said, no, it's obvious what you're doing. You're letting me get anything out. So far we've been talking for 35, 40 minutes, and all I've talked about was the structural issue, which you won't accept, for towers 1, 2, and we did talk a little bit about building 7, and then we switched over to the Pentagon, and I did say, and I don't even know what they said back to me when I said this. I said, well, how do you figure the Pentagon, supposedly there could be 1,000 video cameras pointed out, and we got no image of a plane? I said, but if there's a fist fight at the local high school tonight, they're going to have an image of it. Most secure building in the world. How do you get... I don't even know what they said. How did they get through that? I think at that point, that's where you literally have to shut up and really say, I'm not going to say another word until you address that. They deflected or started talking about me or my mental health. I was attacked. I was gang. We never have when we present this stuff to family and friends, we never have an advocate. It's never like 2 on 5 or 3 on 10. It's always like 3 on 1 or 5 on 1. There's never an advocate with me doing any of this. But the point is, I don't know. They're gone. They're just gone. And what's really crazy is we'll take a lie detector and they'll think I'm equally gone. Like if I think they're gone, 7 out of 10, they'll say right back, Matt's gone, 7 out of 10. They think I'm gone for being able to see this. It is so bizarre. And then I know it leads back to stuff I've talked with Jeff Dixon about, like reality bubbles. And maybe somebody out there in their own little bubble has a different reality when something a little bit different happened on 9/11, where we actually have different realities. But when we're talking about this with people, my theory goes back to actually my book, Quantum of Conscience, which is not a conspiracy book. It's a fiction book about a story about lucid dreaming. Reality bubbles or bubbles intermix or overlap when you have intimacy or eye contact with people. So, I think if that was the case, they'd have said, well, Matt, what you just told me about what happened at the Pentagon, he flew by, that didn't happen in my reality. Things like that would have come out. And they didn't. Everything said, well, yeah, I think I've heard that. He flew by the Pentagon. But I said, well, how do you accept that as being possible? Picture yourself, you've never flown a jumbo jet. What? so that they didn't like, I do a lot of that, and they certainly didn't like that attitude of mine. But I don't think it was as offensive as what they said, but they're just so desperate to latch on to anything that Matt, you might have some good points, but the way you present, no one will listen. No, it was all on me, personal attacks on me. And guys, there's almost no earthly way to explain this anymore. Why people can't see this stuff. I'm so afraid. I've used the word off-world loosely. John Lamb jumped all over it weeks ago. Like, I'm not being literal when I say something that the description of how something must be happening is off-world. I don't really mean aliens. I mean it just means something other than what we understand. So now I'm walking on eggshells every time I like to say off-world. I think you guys would understand what I'm saying. I mean, it means something outside of the confines of what we understand in reality, whether it be little green men or an artificial simulation or Aurora's binding and blinding actual spell put on people so they just don't see it. The point is, when I say it's an off-world explanation, something else is going on. It's just especially when I calmed down a little bit and I gave the 2 or 3 minute presentation about he flew by the Pentagon, 270-degree blind turn while descending 3,000 feet, came in level, hit it over 500 miles an hour, which is impossible at low altitude flight. And then you have the principle of ground effect. The plane should have been forced up, but you can't fly a Boeing at over 400 miles an hour, 5 feet off the ground. You can't do it. A fighter jet only. It's impossible. So you don't think there was a terrorist, Matt? No, there was no terrorist. I said there were no terrorists. And they didn't get into. But then actually, believe it or not, this is one of the most important things I wanted to say, and I'll wrap it up. There was one time years ago when I tried to talk to them about Captain Hook, and I made the event in Connecticut. Somebody actually commented, "What's Captain Hook?" a few weeks back. What happened in Connecticut? Bang bang, whatever, that ridiculous bull crap. And this is pretty amazing, because at the time I wasn't ready to present it. Maybe this was 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know, but I wasn't ready to. They kind of hit me on the fly or something. You believe this? Was a hoax? Or I said, yeah. And one of the things I said is I made a mistake. I made a horrible mistake. But the point is, they latch on to. You make one mistake, you're done. Truther can make no mistakes, because they will latch onto it for life, and they did. So I said, I just pulled something out of my butt, and I talked about no life helicopters they called, and how's that? And I went through all this when I said, and they said it just was on my bullet list, and it was not. I should never have said it. I said the parents weren't allowed to see their children. Obviously, it's a mistake. There were no deaths. There were no. And I mean, well, look, I basically was saying if it was real, there's no precedent in American history where the morgue could keep a parent away from their child. That's just impossible. Don't you see that? Well, there, we got you. It was like, we got you. Well, you just said there were no victims, and now the parents can't see the victims. That was it. See, that was it. I couldn't explain it away. They got me. They were looking there desperately. The frontal lobes, the conscious, the subconscious, the unconscious, was desperately looking for anything they could latch on to. Oh, you said there were no victims. Now the parents can't see the victims. Gotcha. And it was almost like that. It was almost like gotcha. But it wasn't quite that bad, but that was the attitude. And it happened last night. A truther can make no mistakes ever, because they pulled it up in the middle of the 9/11 video, 9/11 discussion last night, where my mother actually said to another relative, "Do you remember what he said that you were supposed to believe it? Do you remember what he said about Sandy Hook?" I'm like, they not only remembered it, they must have talked about it so many times amongst themselves. And this was years ago. So the parents couldn't even see the children. And then 2 seconds later, he said there were no victims. So they actually pulled that up from the grave. Appropriate for what we're talking about. Pulled that ghost up from the grave, and they used that my one mistake I made about Captain Hook, they pulled that into the 9/11 conversation as to why I was not to be believed. But I was like, well, how do you reconcile what I just told you about the plane and the maneuver and the no camera? There's no video of this. And they didn't even say, I figured somebody would say, well, there was that video of the explosion. And I said there was no video. I mean, of course, I'm prepared to talk through that. But then I would have said, look, that was taken from a parking gate. The Pentagon official security cameras can't get a picture of an inbound 757, but a local high school can get a picture of a fight in the parking lot. Or 7-Eleven has 3 different images of a masked man coming in to rob the cash register. I would have said, well, that was from a parking attendant camera. The Pentagon, you think the $1 trillion infrastructure? They have no. So I don't know what they said. They deflected it back on my mental health anyway. So it was very. I'll just wrap it up. But it was. I mean, it was very disturbing. It was very. It was kind of like a nasty conversation. I mean, I don't want to go back there, to be honest with you. It was my mother's house for this type of event. I don't know if I will go back. It's just, but here's one thing I wanted to mention, guys, and I like to put it this way from time to time. If any of this, if it wasn't some sort of a mind control or spell or something where these people just can't see it, and then they react violently towards you, or not violently, but violently, figuratively. If any of it was real, at one point in a 45-minute to an hour-long conversation, I would have said one thing where one person would have said, "Well, wow, wait a second. I'm not sure I'm ready to believe everything you're saying, but I didn't know that. You saying this guy who never flown before pulled this weird Top Gun maneuver? Or I never heard that. Tell me about that." See, that just the reasonableness of, well, I'm not ready to jump on board yet, but okay, tell me a little bit more about that. That sounds pretty impossible. If you're right, I got to verify you, Matt. I don't know if I believe you, but if that's right, that's like impossible. Or at least tell me a little bit more about that. That's interesting. I never heard that. See, that's giving in an inch. I mean, even a foot. Nobody gave in a centimeter. It was like a dug-in trench in World War I, trench warfare. And there was never a, even if you're in an argument with someone and you don't believe a word they're saying, it throws people off, and it creates, I don't know, more cordialness in terms of the person you're discussing with. That's interesting. Tell me about that. So I'm pulling out one impossible anomaly after another. We have hundreds of impossibilities, from passports on the ground to inflated tires that smash through buildings and fly through a fireball and just land on the ground fully inflated. When if you just took the aircraft tire up and just dropped it off the top of the Empire State Building, it would pop when it hit the ground. Forget the airplane crash through a building and the fireball. I mean, so there's just one thing after another that I can pull forth, and not once it was wow, okay, well, that I didn't buy that first party presentation, but that's interesting. Let's go there. Nothing. No giving in, digging in, nastiness, turning it to me that I have some sort of mental health issue, getting personal. It's just, folks, I'm done. I'm officially, I mean, I've said this before. I'm not done with the channel or anything, no. I mean, with trying to talk to anybody. If you're not in our bucket, I'll try to figure out reality with the people that I talk to, but I don't think I'll ever talk to. I always like that diner presentation, and I guess I'll probably wander back to it. But at this point, I really think, for the most part, I'm done. It doesn't matter what evidence there is. It just doesn't matter. Remember what Trump said during the campaign? I think he said, is this just another truth nugget? Did he say something like, I could go out and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose those people that are about to vote for me? said something like that. And it's almost like that. It doesn't, like if there's a Hillary supporter, it doesn't matter what you come up with. You paint the story of, so what happened with the FBI that time? They knocked at the door. I didn't knock at the door, but they sent her a notice. But then it was like they knocked at the door and they said, "We need your computer." And she said, "I'll be right back." And then scrubbed 33,000. We're so tired of that number. Sick of it. 33,000 emails, took it off. And then you talk to someone about this and said, well, the FBI wanted the computer. She manipulated it, erased it, wiped it, then gave it to the FBI. So they said, what if you did that? Would you go to jail? Yeah, they'll give you that. Yeah, well, but then they can never, I don't know, like they just can't see it. It's not like I know it's all part of the script. I don't think there probably was anything that ever happened with emails, and it's all part of the script. I don't believe any of it's real. Okay, most people know this channel. Some people don't. It's all scripted. It's all an act. But let's just say it was real. There's still a Hillary supporter would never ever see that as a crime. Well, yeah, she should have been a little more forthcoming with the FBI. What? So they just can't see it. It is mind-boggling. Now I know I'm going in circles, but I guess I've threatened to be done before, but this time this is a new low. I mean, again, I'm not sure I'll go back there. I'm not sure I'll go back there for Christmas. But then this kind of brings in this one of the reasons these scenarios exist and they have so many problems and potential anomalies and on-purpose mistakes is because it destroys families. Mine was essentially destroyed last night. Mine was essentially destroyed in many ways last night. And somebody right now is saying, Matt, then you played right into their hands. And I did. But I never had the opportunity to speak, even 3-4 minutes at a time, presenting certain aspects of 9/11, which I've been dying to do with this group for a decade, or as long as I've seen it. Maybe I've seen it 8 years or so. I don't know. 8 or 9 years I've seen 9/11. I didn't see it from the beginning. But I was so dying to do this, I had to do it. And, absolutely played right in their hands. And the way these things are crafted, these scenarios are crafted so what happened to me last night, families are destroyed. And it's not like they're getting a tertiary benefit there. It's actually worked into the plan that people, the truth community, will talk about this with people that can't see it, and then their relationships will be destroyed. And these creatures knew it, and it was all part of it. It's all part of it. That's why there's so many weird anomalies and mistakes and obvious, Robbie Bob Barker type mistakes, on purpose mistakes, because even you can still show it to somebody, they won't be able to see it. Even though a man that lost his daughter, obviously I know what didn't happen. A man that lost his daughter the day before, takes a CNN podium, laughing, smiling, glowing, no physical signs of trauma, crying, bags under the eyes, the nose gets fat, the cheeks swell, nothing, just laughing and kidding around and smiling, and maybe told a joke back before they came through the double doors. You could show it to somebody, they won't see it. I don't know. I don't understand it, but it is not a normal definition. We can't explain this away anymore. It's something into the very fabric of reality itself as to why they can't see it. And you could take that down the line. You could take it to chemtrails. You could take it. There's something. I don't even have any words for it, but it cannot be figured out using. I use the word terrestrial or pedestrian or human means. There's something else going on. And I didn't need another lesson, but I got another lesson last night. and it will never happen again. But yeah, I mean, I'm playing into the system what they want. I'm disgusted by these people now, because it's not just they wouldn't listen to me and they were nice about it. They were nasty. It was a gang attack. And then it went to my mental health. You know, it went to my, Matt, you used to be a big executive, and look at you now. I mean, that type of real personal, you know, you used to run 10 states, Matt, and basically now you're a loser. Look at you, now you're a loser. That was the message. Now I can take it. All right, I can take it. But, you know, when you're talking about your mother and some real close family members, and it's now tainted forever, yeah, this shit's for real. And I hope a little bit of what I shared can help somebody a little bit. How many friends I got left are people out there right now?